Hello everyone, and welcome back to
sort of a time capsule 60s में पहुंच गए हो? What is it with those faces? What are you doing? What is that? These guys don't have tongue. No, really, they can't talk.
Baby, wanna say something? No.
क्यों? देख के ही फट गई. Idiot. क्या है यार? These guys have no life in them. I'm telling you guys something, you'll have absolutely no reaction. Okay. I guess I'm done over here. Thanks, guys.
ईशा, I think तुम इन दोनों को अपना टैलेंट क्यों नहीं दिखा रहे थे?
There's not one word coming out of their mouth.
The thing is that we don't want to talk with you actually.
Why don't you go and stop then?
How can you snap? How can you snap?
I don't want.
Should men be allowed to hit a girl back if she hits him first? And what I mean by that, I mean like she's going crazy. Like the guy just sitting down and she just takes off on him, swinging on him and all.
Now this fella does something very interesting here. He actually knows he needs to qualify what hitting is. He does this because he knows he has to. Because one hit in societal standards isn't enough for a man to hit back. He knows that he's going to get flack from someone, somewhere, if it's just one hit, one slap, one punch, or one smack. So he has to make sure his audience knows by saying it without saying it that one punch isn't enough. The double standard here is disgraceful.
No, women rights.
Women rights?
Yeah.
So what's the women right?
If you hit what I'm saying, I don't know.
You are really dumb, for real.
I know most of you are probably amped up and on fire after watching these videos. My purpose for this video today isn't to analyze the particular videos, but more to go over the equal fights, equal rights, or equal rights, equal fights aspect of it. I am going to save these videos, however, and make a whole separate video diving in and analyzing these videos in specific, because just watching them infuriates me. And these need to be taken seriously and looked at in a different light. Well, welcome back to the Fallacious Truth, and one of the most heinous and awful double standards when it comes to men and women that there is to be had. I also wanted to revisit the topic of equal rights and equal fights, as I made mention of it in one of my previous videos. I stated that I hadn't heard of many who state that, and it was true then, but I did a bit of checking around and I actually see quite a lot of men who are saying this in response to women hitting men, or just in response to the whole womanism equality thing as a whole. There's a catch-22 to this. When someone says the equal rights, equal fights, as a general response to it, you can get a number of responses, the following being some of the most common that I've seen. One, in the case of Turtleneck Guy again, he says, if you repeat the phrase, you simply wanted to hit women all along, and you needed this to use it as an excuse. I've seen the response of, men should deal with it. If she is willing to hit you, you must have made a mistake bad enough to make her really, really mad. I've seen the response of, even though she hits you, under no circumstances are you to do anything other than walk away. And I've also seen the response of, if you want to abuse women, just say so.
The most problematic thing about this is that the comment is just filled with misogynists saying equal rights, equal fights. Like, if you want to abuse women, just say it. Just say that you want to hit women. Like, just say it with your chest.
And so on and so forth. They're all pretty much the same. It's the display of privilege of knowing that you aren't going to get your ass kicked for attacking a man. You don't think beyond your action of hitting a man because you know that society states that under any circumstances that man can't hit you back. He is simply there to take it, and if he dares to hit you, It's he that's at fault for assaulting you. And it doesn't take much lying to the police for her to convince them that you threw the first punch, that you were the aggressor. You see, a man knows that if he throws the first punch, first hit, first slap, first strike to another man, that one of the two of them is about to get laid out here. Additionally, with two men, the aggressor has already looked at, considered, and thought of the ramifications of throwing that first punch. He's looked at him, he's sized him up, he's come up with his own internalized conclusions as to how this fight is going to end up. Not once does he ever consider that there aren't going to be any consequences to his actions. Our natural instinct is to protect. It's in our blood, it's in our bones, it's in our DNA. Protecting can potentially mean fighting. There's a reason why men have more muscle and more bone density. We're built for the fight response, not the flight response. It's almost as though you get off knowing that we have to somehow override our response when we are hit or attacked to accommodate your social privilege of being able to hit us without any repercussions. Ladies, you really need to stop and think before you do things here. The next time you go to hit a man, think of this. If you hit a man, you best be able to fight like a man. Because I guarantee you, the majority of you can't. And if you know you can't, don't even consider hitting a man, because one of these days, you're going to find someone who won't simply sit there or stand there and take it. You see, you need to look at this from the perspective of a man, especially when the man has done nothing. And before you say, she would never do it for no reason, I'm here to tell you that yes, she would. And yes, women do. This also begs the question of, is there a valid reason for a woman to hit a man? Not referring to self-defense here, because society says there is no valid reason for a man to hit a woman, and therefore there should be no valid reason for a woman to hit a man. Ladies, as soon as he sees that swing coming out of the corner of his eye, think of this in terms of Matrix bullet time. In that fraction of a second, he is thinking to himself, what do I do here? Am I being attacked? Am I justified in responding? If I do respond, what's going to happen? Will the police believe me if I just defended myself? She is so much smaller than me. No one is going to believe me. How many times does she have to hit me for it to be justified in defending myself? If I let her get this one punch out and she stops, maybe I won't need to defend myself. I've been taught all my life that there is no reason whatsoever to hit a woman. But does this apply to defending myself? Will what I'm about to do be considered as defending myself? And if it gets to the point where blocking her attacks isn't working, and I'm forced to take a more aggressive action, am I going to go to jail for it? Ladies, understand this well. He's making this decision while adrenaline is coursing through his veins. He's making this decision while being amped up on arguably the most powerful substance in the human body. Do you really want to test a man's ability to be able to flip that switch off and walk away after you have just assaulted him? Now, I know the general consensus is that women lack common sense, but you have to understand the position that you're putting a man in. You need to understand this fact. You have no business, no reason, no justification to hit a man unless in the event that you are defending your life, period. Remember this simple phrase, it will save you a whole host of problems. If you hit like a man, you best be able to fight like a man. Because as I said earlier, you can't. Bottom line here is we have to take into consideration a whole host of other things when it comes to defending ourselves against a woman. If the situation calls for it, I'd say at least 8 out of 10 times, the man chooses to do nothing because it's simply not worth the risk to himself, his freedom, and his reputation. I'm not willing to put my faith and my trust into a justice system that's heavily biased towards women. My suggestion is that none of you fellas take that risk too. So, the question of why are men thinking of violence as soon as equality is brought up? It's an incredibly valid question. So let me ask you down in the comments. Why do you think that this is what comes to mind as soon as equality is brought up? Now, we know that women and some questionable males who like to virtue signal say it's because men want to hit women. Those of us who have been there have dealt with situations like this, and who have seen or know other men that have been in situations like this, or simply men who aren't pushovers, know better. We know the answer to the question is simple, and it lies in the initial problem. And that problem is women thinking that it's okay to hit men. Now let me explain here. If society has reached a point where the first thing men think of is the defense from women, then the problem lies with you ladies. Because if there was no need for men to defend themselves against women, I promise you, this would never even enter into our minds. We would have zero reasons to even think along these lines. But since society has greenlit, justified, etc. hitting men, it's now one of the first things that we think of. So ladies, the problem doesn't lie with the fact that we're thinking about this. The problem lies with the fact that we have to think about this. Now ladies, if you want this to stop, then you need to take a step back and think about why men are thinking this way, and you need to make some changes. And thank you once again for joining me today for another Fallacious Truth segment. If you wouldn't mind liking, sharing, and subscribing, I'd be really grateful. Thank you, my friends, and take care.